Something that came to mind, guys, and I want to talk to you about it. This may never happen at this point, but I want you to know that it's not impossible. What if they reinstated slavery? What if they reinstated slavery in the United States? I want you to understand how easy it is to happen. Slavery was abolished simply by a decision. First, there was a law that was passed, and then there was an amendment added to the Constitution. Now, people was against it, and there were fights and everything between the North and the South, and there was a civil war. Okay, the Confederates and the Union was fighting. It was a bloody, bloody war. A lot of people died, but it did not change the laws that were written. All it took was a group of people who had a general consensus to come together with enough of a justification to say this needs to change, and they drafted amendments and added amendments to the Constitution. It was easy for how did black men get the right to vote? All it took was a conversation, a general consensus or agreement, and then it was added to the amendment. Yes, there was a lot of stuff behind it, but all needs to happen is something either removed from the amendment, rescinded from it, or added. And then you have the big uproar and the fight. But all is needed is enough of a justification. What is my point? The war, the freedom that was given to black people in America was not because, it's not like in Jamaica. In Jamaica, in Haiti, the black people fought hard, died, fought for their freedom. The reason why there was any sort of freedom in America is because the Union soldiers, they decided that they were going to fight. White people were fighting against other white people. It wasn't an all black army that was fighting against the rest of America, because it would not have happened. It would not have worked. I'm trying to tell you that. It wouldn't have. And it's the same thing today. Nothing is a big deal until white people get upset about it. If you see certain injustices, if enough people cry out about it, then you're going to see change. There was all this huge stuff around when George Floyd died. If it was just all black people acting up, yes, it would have been the normal burning down of the towns and all that, but nothing's going to change. But because it gripped the heart of white people and worldwide, that's where something began to happen. There were changes. And guys, I'm not telling you that you should look at yourself or we should see ourselves as less than, but I want you to understand how easy it is to change laws. If there's enough of a justification to say these people need to go back to be slaves because they are a menace to society, they're problematic, they're this and that, they're a danger. All that needs to happen is enough of a verbiage in a conversation and enough evidence to show that we are doing this for the greater good of society. You know what? There's a lot of people that will go along with it. Just as there'll be people that's against it, there's going to be people that will say, yes, I feel we're safer if we enslave them. And they'll change it. It won't be the way how it was before, where you're just being beaten and tortured. It's going to be more finessed up. It's going to be different, but you will be confined. In our minds today, we can't imagine that because there were other people in America that fought hard. And they went through things to get the freedoms that as Black Americans you can enjoy without even thinking about it. But truly what you're going to find is that people are not as brave or as willing as those back then. You see, it's different. You think everyone's going to take up arms and die for their nation, or for their people, but there will be only a few that will be that way. It is not hard to bring Every black person, if they wanted to enslave black people again, bring them under control, it's easy to do. Look at how the entire nation, for the most part, wear masks, and there can be control measures if you don't. There's enough power in the military to bring down a country. There's enough military power here in the United States to go and subdue a nation and a country. There is enough weapons and advancements to stop a whole other country. You think it won't be hard if they decided to use
Forgive me, I'm saying if you think it's not hard, I'm meaning to say, do you think it's not easy to subdue a group of people if they so chose? Let's continue.
military power to subdue every black person in the United States and round you up for slavery? Round you up for, they wouldn't call it slavery, it'd be something else. It's going to be another way. It's going to be called some sort of cleansing to save you from yourselves. Do you think it's not hard to do? Not in all the gangbangers and all the people on the planet, all the manpower that you may think you have weapons at home, you have this and this. You're not prepared for the military powers. You cannot. You will not. Now, would there be a problem within the military itself? Of course. It will be chaos. It will be mayhem. But there may even be a certain conditioning even then to control that. Because maybe they will even say, no, those who are in the military and the thing is, you just need to separate certain people to say you're better than these people. Remember, they did a prisoner, what was that experiment they did? They had a bunch of prisoners together and just say, hey, you're better. So if you're serving in the military as a black person, oh no, you're not going to be enslaved. We need you to help to keep everybody else in control. And believe it or not, while there may be a few that will rise up and say no, you will be very surprised how people can control you with enough of a narrative and enough of a justification of, what you're doing is a right thing. I'm putting you in authority here, and I'm going to give you, this is going to be your land, and this is going to be your home, and this is what you're going to do. You and your family is going to be safe. We're going to take care of you guys. We just need you to control those guys. The Bible says the heart of man is desperately wicked. Who shall know it? The reason why I'm playing out this scenario to you, why you may not ever see it, it may not come to pass. I don't see that happening. But what I want you to understand is the importance, that small thread, that small line that keeps us and gives you the freedoms that you have. And it's only by the grace of God that you've been given your freedom. So when you have the freedoms that you have, wherever you are, whether it's in America as a Black American, as you are in America as someone that's come from another country where you have faced a lot of persecution and near genocide, whether you're in your home country, wherever you are, your freedoms and the things that you have, be grateful for it and don't use it for foolishness. Do not take it for granted. People who are in South Korea, the only thing that protects you is that DMZ and the presence of the military powers that's there. God forbid you don't want the president to pull everybody out, pull all the military out of South Korea like he did in Afghanistan, because everything changes. What am I saying? Be grateful when you have freedom, when you've been given a liberty. Never use your liberty. Number one, never take it for granted. Never use your freedom to oppress other people, because enough wickedness and enough sin comes up and gets into the nostrils of God. There's going to have to be repercussions. What you sow, you will reap. There are people all over the world. There's people who you may have been poor at some point and you went through some things, and then you climbed up the ladder and got better, and now you use your wealth to do people wrong, people that were just like you. The caste system in India, the way that works, if you're considered to be the untouchables, you're treated terribly. What happens when you get the opportunity to go to another country and you set up, say, in the United States, and you go to England and you go to these different places and you start afresh, and now you yourself, having come from that type of treatment, now begin to mistreat others because they're black, because they're Pakistani, and if that's the right term, and because they're this and that, they're white. Too often, people forget God, or they believe they got themselves there. And they take their freedom and they take the grace and mercy that's been given to them and they use it to do evil. I'm going to close out here and give you the parable that the Bible talks about a king, that a man who owed a king a great debt and he could not pay it. And the king was getting ready to take his family, sell his property, enslave his family. And the servant got down on his knees and he cried and he begged for mercy of the king. And the king was moved with compassion, and he canceled the debt. He said, "You don't have to pay me anything." He didn't put him on a plan, anything. He completely exonerated him of everything that he owed. And this man, now free, fully exonerated, goes out there and sees another servant who owes him far less than what he owed the king. And that servant begged him and said, "Give me mercy, have mercy on me." And that servant grabbed him and forced him. He would not have mercy on him and threw him in prison. And others saw what had happened, and they went and they told the king. And the king immediately summoned that servant, and he said, "You wicked servant, when you needed mercy, I gave you mercy. And you could not have done the same for someone who owed you far less." And what he did, he immediately sentenced him to be imprisoned, and he will not be let out. He sent him to the tormentors. That's what it says. And he was not to be released until he had paid what he owed. What am I saying? Be grateful for the freedoms and the things that you have. It came with a price. There's people who died. There are people who were killed. There are people who never got the things that you got. And God placed it in the heart of, see, the Bible says that only God can turn the heart of a king. Place it in the heart in America for Abraham Lincoln. He changed his heart. He turned his heart. Now, some people say he had his own ulterior motive, whatever it was. He did that. God allowed that to happen. There was a bloody war, and God allowed it to be where the Union beat the Confederates. And while there were still things that happened, eventually through time, things change. When you get your freedom, stop clowning around with it. Do not take your liberty, your emancipations and stuff for granted. Stop doing stupid things, senseless things with your freedom. It is a God-given right. No, it's not a God-given right. It is a God-given privilege that you've been given to have that. It is the same thing with any race in the United States. Everybody knows what it's like to be enslaved. The Chinese, Japanese, you know what it's like to be enslaved. White people, you know what it was like to be enslaved. If you look at your history, Texas, you weren't always a free state. You didn't have your own freedoms. You had to fight the Spanish. You had to fight all these different things because of the way you were treated. So then how do you come around and then you want to own slaves? There is a repetition of wrongdoing when you've been given opportunity. Use your opportunity and power to do wrong to other people. Freedom and emancipation It's not a right, it's a privilege. And so when you have that, do well with it. You may not be doing anything extraordinary, but just wake up and do right. Stop using your hands and your freedom and your liberties to do wrong things. Stop using your liberties to free Barabbas. When Christ was getting ready to be crucified, he had done no wrong. But they called for Barabbas, a known thief and murderer, because they had an agenda. Just get him out of there. We want Jesus dead. And so there's a lot of people who are in power and in authority that you are using your position to be freeing the Barabbas of today, simply for an agenda. But God sees everything. We're living in times where people think that they are gods. I brought myself here. I did this. I did that. But sure enough, you're not even, all the power and authority that you have, you don't know how to take all that stuff with you when you die. Because you can't. Because you go back the way you came, naked and without anything. Use your liberties. Use your opportunities for what is right. Do something productive with your day. Because all it takes is a decision and a general consensus. You may think a lot of people's okay with, black people being free, but there's a large majority and very powerful people who feels otherwise. And you must know the freedoms and the liberty that you have as black people. It's not because you're so great and you're so wonderful. Sometimes you're simply being tolerated. It's by the grace of God that you have the freedoms and the positions that you do have. I'm not telling you need to be subservient to man, but you need to look up to God. And you have to begin to evaluate yourself, your heart, and change begins in your own home, in your own communities. Stop playing these games. Stop becoming entitled. God has given you the freedom he has given to you, not so you can become a spoiled brat or a menace or you owe me. Stop it. You're not a victim. You're a victor. Stop throwing tantrums over things that you're wrong for. And use that energy to really help and make a difference for those who are truly being oppressed and truly going through things. But they're being overshadowed by the stupidity and the ignorance of people who are famous, who overshadows and do things and just take themselves for granted and think they can do things and get off. And so the person who really needs it, he's now overshadowed. She's now overshadowed. No one's taking them seriously. And guess what? They're going to be forgotten because they don't have the celebrity status and the money and the face of everybody else. But they will suffer the repercussions of these agenda-driven, selfish behaviors. Your freedom is something that God has given to you. Do not take the freedom that he's given to you for granted. Do not use it for baseless and just completely unjustified reasons. Because as easy as it was, it wasn't easy, but all it took was a general agreement and for laws to be passed and for it to be written, for it to change. Whoever you are in the world, wherever you are, don't take your skin and use it to oppress others. Don't take your position and your social status to mistreat someone because they're poor. Don't say this is just a cook, this is just someone else, because they cook wonderful foods for you. Even in the Bible, for someone to be able to change the showbread, to prepare the showbread and place the showbread on the altar in the tabernacle of God, they had to be carefully selected by God. Even what you and I may look at and think, it was no big deal. It was a big deal to God. He wanted those who were skilled. He placed that in them and they were carefully selected. So even people who are in the food industry, they are gifted to be able to create such wonderful foods and flavors for us. They're not less than you. The person that can clean, the gift to clean, they're not less than you. And so when you use your authority and the things that you have in this life to hurt others, don't you know that things can turn around and things can be changed? And you may never experience things in this life where things change for you. But you would rather things have been changed in this life than when you step into eternity and realize that there have been a meticulous record kept of your behaviors in this world and what you did with your riches and your position and with your freedom and with your liberties. Many have forgotten God. Power, freedoms, technology advancements, what you believe is your physical abilities has caused people to forget God and believe in whatever they want to believe in. But there's going to come a time when the tables turn, when things happen, when you step into eternity, you will believe. Getting back to the bottom line of this, God heard the cries of the people, and He allowed you to be free today. Use your freedom, use your liberties. Use what you've been given for right. Don't throw it back in God's face. And do not use it to oppress others or to do wrong. Because what you sow, you will reap it. You will reap the changes that can occur in this life. And don't worry how long someone is up on high and just getting away. The Bible says you will see the enemy and those who do wrong, they're just spreading and flourishing like a green bay tree. But suddenly there will be no more, because that is how it works. You would have years and years of doing wrong and they just seem like they're getting away. But when it comes to the downfall and cutting down of someone mighty, it happens just like that in an instant. And we see it all the time. Be thankful for your liberties. Be thankful for what you have. Be thankful for your freedom. Be thankful for the fact that you can walk into a movie theater with people of different colors with no problems. You can get served in different places with no problem. Yes, there are places that people still feel a certain way, but they're the minority, not the majority. Be thankful that you're educated and you can do certain things and make certain decisions. But do not use your power to do wrong. Because I want you to know, judges and politicians and those in authority, you have a greater judgment when you stand before God. Because He had entrusted you with people and lives and gave you the ability to make a difference. But what did you do with your power? All that you will answer to. Doesn't matter what circles you're in this life. You're going to go before as a naked soul before God. And you're going to answer for all that you have done here. Use your freedom wisely. Use your opportunities wisely. Be a good steward of everything that's been placed in your hands. Because at the end of it all, as the Bible says, when the Master comes back, you're going to answer for everything that you have done. All right, guys.